Welcome to NFL Live. We are 100 days away from the first game of the NFL season, and today is also the first day of organized team activities for 20 of the league's 32 teams. I am Dan Graziano, joined by Jeff Darlington, Tim Hasselbeck, and Ryan Clark for our own organized activities. Today, we start with a guy who is not on the field. That is Aaron Rodgers. Maybe this weekend, though, the former Packers and Jets quarterback gave us some hints on what his future might entail.
Will Aaron Rodgers ever go to the Bears?
Oh, boy. Security, can we get her out of here? I need some security. Security,
can you take it easy on her on this one?
No, but I believe there's a team that might play in Chicago this year.
Let's go!
On a road trip. I don't know. I'm not sure. Got to check it out.
Are you speaking in code?
I love Chicago, though. Way more than they love me.
We've pieced it together, and we think he might be talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is one of the teams that goes to Chicago this year. And for that reason, we welcome in our Steelers reporter, Brooke Pryor, who was at OTAs today. Brooke, Rodgers not there, but Mason Rudolph is. What is he saying about what's going on at quarterback in Pittsburgh?
Well, Dan, Mason Rudolph is excited to be back in Pittsburgh, a place that is very familiar to him. And even the noise around him is a familiar thing that he's dealt with throughout his time in the NFL. Obviously, right now, that noise is coming from an Aaron Rodgers-sized shape elephant in the quarterback room. The only thing unfamiliar about Mason Rudolph right now, as you'll see in just a second, is that new mustache that has taken up residence on his face.
That's nothing new to me. There's been constant noise. That is the nature of the NFL. So I am been used to that for a long time now. Do nothing but, be the best I can be and help our team get better this spring. I've been a part where you jump on the moving train late in the spring, and then you're also here from the jump. So I've learned to adapt to both, but it's obviously good to be wanted. I think it fits me well. I think, when any offense is at its best, you're running the ball well, you're play actioning, you're moving the pocket, changing the launch point for the offensive line, and then you're taking shots to playmakers, and we have plenty of those.
All right, thanks.
One of those playmakers, by the way, that Mason Rudolph mentioned. Mason Rudolph just said they have a lot of playmakers on this team, but one who was not there, new wide receiver DK Metcalf, who was traded to the Steelers, signed an extension. He was not there for the first day of OTAs that the media was able to be at, but I talked with tight end Pat Freiermuth, and he said that Metcalf has been around for probably at least half of the phase 1 and 2 OTAs. Mason Rudolph said he's gotten to work with them. Pat Freiermuth said that one thing that made them all laugh was he and DK were watching film of some of their practices from some of these bunch formations, these stack formations, and he said it looked like they had another tight end out there on the field when they all split out because DK Metcalf is so big. So definitely a weapon that Mason Rudolph is looking forward to getting some work in with at some point during these OTAs.
All right, thanks a lot, Brooke. Brooke will keep us posted on what's going on with the Steelers as eventually everybody will be back together, and that might involve Aaron Rodgers at some point. Tim, you're a quarterback. What's reasonable in terms of the timeline? How long can Aaron Rodgers take before making this decision and still be effective for Pittsburgh?
Yeah, Dan, I think, listen, earlier is always better for all players, especially quarterbacks. But look, when you've been in the league for a couple decades, look, you can do things a little bit differently. And so I do think what is reasonable is at some point during training camp, preferably the start of training camp. Look, if Aaron Rodgers had just stayed with one team his entire career, it might be the kind of move that he would do even if that was the case. Never mind, jumping from team to team, just because we've seen guys that have played in their 40s do stuff like this. So, look, it's not ideal for a team or a player, but when you have the experience that he has, it's still better than the alternative, which is why I think all parties are generally on board and okay with it.
For people who have gotten an opportunity to have extremely long careers, it's not game day that normally retires them. It's the rest of the stuff. It's the Monday through the Saturday during the season. It's the off season, the OTAs, and the workouts. And so if you're Aaron Rodgers and if you show up in training camp, you'll have the ability to not only pick up the playbook, but the ability to produce and a team that will allow you to, then that's exactly what you do. The good thing about the Pittsburgh Steelers is you have established leaders in that locker room. People like Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, Pat Fryermuth, Mika Fitzpatrick, who understands how things are supposed to go. Aaron Rodgers won't have to step in and be the captain and be the leader who everyone rallies behind. What Aaron Rodgers will have to do is master the playbook and execute it. And I fully believe that he can do that showing up in training camp, even if it's not necessarily the message you want to send to a young team.
In terms of that playbook, it will be one that I think is unfamiliar to him, right? When he was with the Jets, Tim, they kind of built the offense around him the way he wanted it to look. This will be Arthur Smith's offense. What do you think that marriage looks like if it ultimately happens between Arthur Smith, the Steelers offensive coordinator, and Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, Dan, it's a great point because, look, he basically played between Mike McCarthy and LaFleur in the same, derivative of a West Coast offense, and so while terminology and things were different, the basis of what they were doing kind of originated from the same space. It has been a little bit different what Arthur Smith has done. Now, some of that's been personnel, some of that's been Arthur Smith's quarterbacks. So, look, I think the challenge ends up being for both people. For Aaron at this stage of his career to be willing to be an old dog that's taught new tricks and learn something new, be open to that. And I think for Arthur Smith to say, okay, let's do the things that this guy's been historically good at doing throughout his career. And so much like we applauded Kellen Moore for, adapting to, a run game and using the quarterbacks in Philly in a different way than he'd used quarterbacks in the past, like I think a similar thing has to happen when you have, a veteran player, coming in with really, what will be a new offense for him.
Our Jeremy Fowler had an interesting plan B for Pittsburgh the other day on SportsCenter. Take a listen.
I would say Kirk Cousins. I had some conversations with people this week to led me to believe that Cousins is at the very least on the Steelers' radar if something were to fall through on Rodgers. Now, here's how they could make that happen. Cousins has $37.5 million in guarantees between this year and next year. Somebody's on the hook for that, whether it's Atlanta or someone else. So to facilitate a trade, Atlanta would need a team to offset some of that money, whether it's $4 million, $20 million, whatever it is. But the feeling around the league is that Atlanta has not been willing to budge on this. They haven't shown a lot of interest in trading Cousins. It would take a hefty price tag for another team to wiggle that out.
Jeff Darlington, what are you hearing about Kirk Cousins in that situation?
Well, listen, I think that it's important to first of all remember that Aaron Rodgers remains the frontrunner to wind up with the Steelers. And I don't think we need to go into panic mode and hit the button to expect them to go down other roads. And if that were to be the case, the one thing I would remind people, we don't want to just play the name game here. This is not to just dump on Kirk Cousins, but he was replaced by Michael Penix with good reason. I remember covering multiple Falcons games, and I was at those games, and I saw a Kirk Cousins who definitely looked much closer to the end of his career than the beginning. The velocity on his passes was not there, leading to a lot of the interceptions that ultimately led to the bench. So the idea of just saying Kirk Cousins is the answer needs to be kind of maybe just a touch backed off because of the way that he played. Remember that as you consider